Hey everyone, and welcome to the Unmodern Podcast, the podcast where we have unscripted, unapologetic, and uncomfortable conversations that affects everyday people. If you've ever had an outlook, thought, or an opinion that modern day society told you to be silent on, that you would get in trouble for, or if you've ever heard the words, probably shouldn't say that, then this is the podcast for you. My name is Alfred, a husband, father, and an adventure-seeking kind of guy who over the years has learned to have a positive outlook on life, regardless of what society throws at me. So if you're ready to listen, let's go. All right, Tom, thanks for coming on the Unmodern Podcast, brother. How you doing?
Good, Alfred. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. You're someone I look up to a ton. You're someone that I really appreciate a lot of aspects of what you stand for, your age and our kind of how we discovered each other in paintball. Some people may think that's a bit strange, but we're definitely going to dive into that, why it speaks to us and, how people of your age and your background can really gravitate to that sport. I love your mental health advocacy. That to me is something that we need more of, where I feel like it's very appropriate and almost serendipitous that we're doing this in November for Movember. My stash is lacking heavy, but yeah, I absolutely love that stuff. And I want to get into you, man. I want you to tell your story. I'm so honored to take your V card. I appreciate you giving me your podcast Virgin card. Thank you, sir. And yeah, I want you to just kind of first introduce yourself, a little bit of background, where you're from, what you do, and then we'll start with paintball, and then we'll get into mental health advocacy, and then anything else you want to dive into, man. Floor is yours, brother.
All right. Well, obviously, you know me through paintball, but my name's Tom Taylor and 47 years old, or going to be 47 here in a couple months. But yeah, just grew up in a small rural community, town called Standard, about an hour east of Calgary, and yeah, grew up playing the usual sports that most Alberta rural kids do. It was hockey all the time and nothing but, and dabbled a little bit in golf when I was in my teens, and yeah, once the minor hockey and the junior hockey aspirations ended, I dove headfirst into the electrical trade. I'm a journeyman master electrician and been doing that for, well, right out of high school. Got in into a company through connections with my father, and right into oil and gas, and been doing that for longer than I haven't been doing it. So yeah, been around all over the province through work, seen pretty much every corner of the province of Alberta here. So yeah, ended up back down in Calgary, not too far from where I grew up, and it felt like home, and decided to plant some roots and make this my home where I wanted to raise my family, and yeah, here we are.
That's a cool story, man. I love it. So, average Joe, electrician, what drew you to paintball, man? We got to get into this. I want to get right into it. Today, there was an indoor tournament here in Edmonton. It's a little bit of ways from you. Obviously, you didn't attend. I wasn't able to attend. I was working today. But man, I'm not going to lie to you. When I first seen you on the field, you stuck out like a sore thumb. And I mean that in the most flattering way, where I thought you were there as like a participant, as a spectator to somebody else who was participating. And when I seen you don the gear and the gun, I was like, damn, this guy's going for it. And I've always been a fan of people who embrace the sport of paintball, because I think it's so misunderstood, and it's the greatest sport ever. I'm obviously super biased, but I think it checks more boxes than people realize. I've always described it, and I know you've heard me describe it, as really we're an island of misfit toys. It's not a cheap sport, if you're looking for cheap, maybe go play chess or something. That might be a better avenue, but
Yeah.
it has this aura and this ability to captivate people who feel like they don't fit in. Like if you're not a jock, or if you're not
Yeah.
super athletic. I mean, super athleticism helps like any sport, but it's the most inclusive sport I've ever witnessed. You can have professional players that weigh 300 pounds. You can have professional players as young as 14 years old. You can have parents, kids, brothers, girls, boys. We don't bias towards anything. Doesn't matter your skin color, your race, your ethnicity. If you're vegan, it's irrelevant. And I've never seen a community embrace players like paintball. And I've advocated for this for years, but I feel like you're a great image for this because you are in a different demographic than me. And I love for you to tell me your history, why you're into it, how you're feeling about it today, and I especially where the trajectory is of paintball right now, where you think we're gonna go. Because I'm absolutely fired up about paintball right now. I'm so much more of a fan than a player, but I'd love to get your perspective on that.
No, you nailed it on the head, and that's so I've been involved in paintball on a couple different occasions now. So first time that I got into playing paintball was in I want to say 2006. Me and my wife had just started recently dating, and we decided to go for a rafting trip down the Bow River, and had a really great time at that. But kind of how things happened, we had vehicles staged at two different spots where we're gonna get out of the river and where we got onto the river. And me trying to be, organized and have everything kind of buttoned up and everything just go perfect. When we unloaded everything, was getting ready to go in the water, I threw my truck keys in my wife's vehicle's glove box where we were getting onto the river and not packing them with us to be able to get into our vehicle when we got off the river. So we got all the way down. We started at Edwardy Park and we floated all the way down to the zoo. And we got everything out of the water. We were going to get everything loaded up. I checked my pockets, no keys, checked our bags, no keys. So I had to phone a buddy of mine up and get him to come rip me over back over to Harry's truck at the other end of the river. And on the travel there, he had mentioned that him and his friend were going to a stag party and they were going to go play paintball out at Capture the Flag out at Wipers. Asked if I wanted to come. So I had been paintballing when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. We went for a hockey wind-up function, and that was probably in the early 90s. So, I mean, we were still using the revolvers, the six-shooter revolvers with the CO2 cartridges for markers. So I kind of expected that when I went out to go play this next time they're out and capture the flag. And yeah, it was wild. Like it was like nothing I'd ever participated in my life. Just the adrenaline, I don't know, just the excitement of it. Like there's about the sport of paintball that has not touched me in a way that any other sport has. Like playing hockey my whole life growing up, competitive, team sport oriented, playing golf, played at a pretty high level and, individual sport, but definitely a competitive aspect to that. I don't know, they just didn't invoke the enthusiasm and the excitement and the adrenaline rush like paintball did. And I mean, there's people out there, they look like they were spacemen. The way they're all dressed up in like these uniforms and they had these autococker paint guns and we were just shooting the rental, the Tippmans, and it got me to thinking like what do these guys do? Like why do they look so much different than what the rest of us do? So got into a conversation with them and they, told me that they played a format called speedball and it's completely different from playing in the woods and whatnot and team aspect and a lot more action driven and oriented. So kind of got me to thinking that maybe I wanted to check that out. So I did some looking around. They mentioned that there was an indoor paintball place in Calgary called Rampage Paintball. So I found a couple stores and actually was the one that I came across back then. It was Badlands. That was the first paintball store I ever been in. Went in there and I met a fellow named Justin Coronel who was working there at the time, and he sold me my first paintball setup, speedball setup, which I think was like a Spider Phoenix or something like that. I don't know. It was an older marker and it did the job. It got me into the sport. So I got that and got the rest of the gear and took my wife out to Bragg Creek paintball one day after I got hit by the bug and wanted to show her the sport, and that was enough for her. She lasted all of maybe a couple games and got shot a couple times and never really wanted to give paintball a second thought after that. It was not her speed, not her cup of tea. So as the couple months went by and I was kind of getting the itch to use all this new gear that I got. So I found my way down to Rampage paintball, and sure enough, there was the kid that worked at Badlands. He was out on the field just murking everyone, and a bunch of other kids there. Kim Kaizen was one of the people at the field on that first time I went down there. Colby Kerr, a bunch of the Outrider players, and I was kind of blown back about just what kind of scene there was for this sport of paintball. Like I had only ever known it to be played in the bush, and you go out there and you shoot your whatever 100 paintballs or 200 paintballs, and that lasts you a day, and you got your fill, and you didn't think about it for many, many, many years. So I got a crash course on how to play speedball that night. Got shot by everyone numerous times, but loved it. Loved it. I was absolutely the first time, and I ended up going back a couple weeks later, and I ran into one of the people that I was playing paintball with that stag party, and we kind of glanced at each other when we pulled up in the parking lot, and we kind of made the connection that we'd played together before and got chatting, and he told me that they were starting a new team, and they were playing for a lady who owned a paintball field out west of Calgary there at Bray Creek, and she was gonna, like, her field was gonna be sponsoring the team, and I said I should try out, and so they were actually hosting their tryouts that night, and basically just went and introduced myself to what was to be Emma Carey and her team Vengeance 1.0, and told her that I was interested in trying out for the team. So in typical Emma fashion, she ran the wheels off me that night and put me through the ringer, and apparently did well enough that I was asked to play on their team. So that was my first foray into speedball, and yeah, our first tournament was as a team, and my first tournament ever was 2007 Calgary or Canadian Nationals, CPPL Canadian Nationals at the old Corral Center, or the Stampede Grounds, the Ag Building. So
Yeah.
that was something like I'd never seen before either. All the years playing hockey, like, I mean, it was just something else. It was, I don't know, just so different, but so much more appealing to me. So that was how I kind of got into paintball my first go around.
I love it, dude. I have a very unique origin story. Paintball found me. I was living in Fort McMurray at the time in 2004. I was in my first year of high school, and we played at a field called Slop Ball. It was down this road called Tower Road, very famous spot for partying and bad decisions by a lot of young kids. And I remember playing, it was small. They had a tire field, and this image is burned in my head. As soon as you pull in on the right hand side, there's a C can, and then on the left there was a 30-foot X-shaped inflatable. And I was like, what the fuck is that? I was like, there's no logical purpose for that bunker. Like, nobody's shooting that high.
Yeah.
Like, it makes no fucking sense. And there was a cool logo in the middle of it. It was a paintball with devil horns on it, and it said X ball. And I was like, okay. So I'm out there with my very first marker, Titman A5, and I'm playing with these kids, and we don't know what we're doing. We're running around like chickens with their heads cut off. There's no rhyme or reason. We're just kind of doing our thing. I remember leaving, and as we were pulling out, the sound of the horn going, and back then it was unlimited rate of fire. So these guns were designed to sound and mimic like machine guns. And I remember leaving. We're on the back of a truck. I remember a kid. I think a kid name was like Attila, and then, which is a badass name, by the way. I fucking love that name. And there was a couple other kids, and we're talking about it, showing each other our welts. We're like, we're badass mofos. This is amazing. And the horn went, and all of a sudden you heard
Yeah.
just non-stop, and I'm just like, the hair stood up in the back of my head. At first, it was like fear. I'm just like,
Yeah.
thank God those guys weren't playing with me. And as soon as that came down, which was about 3 seconds later, I'm like, but how cool would it be to experience that? And you got to remember, this is
Absolutely.
back. There's no iPhone in 2004. I mean, there's technology. There's like MSN Messenger and all that shit, but there's no like
Yeah.
Instagram. Anything like that shit did not exist. I'm there with my fucking
No.
LG flip phone with my T9 word texting bullshit. Like, that's how old I am. I know, right?
Yeah.
And I remember going back home, and I just started consuming. I'm on, like, Google was there. So like I'm online. I find edmontonpaintball.com, basically like an online forum. It's basically like the old school version of like a Discord. And I find out
Yeah.
that Fort Mac has a massive paintball community. And I'm like, how the fuck does this have a paintball community? Fort Mac summers are like 2 months long. But back in the day,
Oh,
there's
exactly.
money, the economy was booming. A lot of young kids going out to
Yeah.
site making 60, $70,000 a year with no responsibilities. They had cash to burn and they had
Yep.
testosterone to use. So I was like,
Absolutely.
kind of makes sense. So 2005 Nationals, I found a team. We played under the mantra intensity. And I remember some of my teammates.
Nice.
I don't remember all of them. There was Marshall Pagets, Jordan Pagets, Troy. I don't remember his last name. That guy was he was an orangutan. I thought, oh man. And paintball found me at a time at a really tumultuous season of my life, I guess, is I had a really terrible relationship with my father. I was smoking a lot of pot, not doing a lot, not doing good in school, really just directionless as a kid, as a person,
Yeah.
every facet of my life. And thankfully, paintball's expensive enough that you kind of got to commit to it. So I was like, well, I didn't really have a lot of money for other self-destructive shit because I was focused on that. Thank fuck. I'm sure that's like with hockey with other kids, but that was with me. And 2005 Nationals, Stampede Grounds, smells like horse poop in there. Fucking, you leave
Yeah.
and half the people have
And you
pink
never get
eye.
that
It's
smell
just
out of your gear after playing in one of those, right?
no.
Forever ingrained in you.
And like the paintballs back then, I'm pretty sure were made of like the most stain like oil on the planet. Yeah.
It was like every company had a goal to see whose paint could stain the most and the worst, right? Tasted like shit.
Yeah, yeah. We used to have contests so you could eat paintballs and then fucking woof your cookies later. But I played that. We did terrible. And I met up with a guy online who I traded for an angel. I know, right? It's embarrassing, but
Yeah.
I got an angel and I actually loved it. The thing was fucking sweet. That like they were designed to shoot fast. I don't know if you remember the WDP guys back in the day. You watch the old documentaries. Those guys had like strippers in their tents at the big tournaments over in like Toulouse, France and shit. Those guys were fucking crazy. So I immediately gravitated to that. I'm like, these guys are badass.
Yeah.
And then I played on a team called Hellhounds that was based out of Big Dog Paintball is what the store was called that Jordan opened up in Fort McMurray. I was there
Okay.
every day. I was there every day, and we built a tire field
Yeah.
in a small place in Fort Mac called Waterways. People will understand if you're familiar with Fort Mac, you'll know.
Yeah.
If not, don't even try to imagine it. We
That
brought
was
all
the
these
south
tires in
end,
the back.
wasn't it?
That is the southeast side. It's the one that
Southeast. Yeah.
was the
Yeah. Yeah.
most. It
Yeah.
was the area that was one of the most devastated during the Beast Fire in 16. But
Right.
it was way out in the back. I'm sure it's actually probably like there's homes there now, but it was like in a marsh.
Oh,
We
guaranteed.
had like a Mazda B2000 truck that I'm pretty sure the box capacity was 100 pounds. We'd fucking load 3,000 pounds of tires in that thing and drop them off. Oh man, and it was a mosquito fest, dude. Those tires collecting water over
Yeah.
the years, dude, it was
Oh,
terrible.
God.
But that's what we did,
Yeah.
and we would literally load up air bottles and we'd fill up on the back of the truck our air tanks, and we'd be out there all fucking day. We didn't stop and
Yeah.
we built rivalries. We had a big community up there. Fast forward a little bit, 2007, I started playing with a team called Minor Threat with some of my buddies that I kind of transitioned away from Big Dog, and I was really gravitating towards Rampage. Shout out Brian, ex-owner of Rampage. He currently owns Rampage, the outdoor field
Yeah.
south of Calgary, but the indoor had to close. And I was playing, and I think the reason why I'm so passionate about paintball is at the time I was playing with professional players. There was a local group of
Yeah.
professional players that showed up to the same field as me. I was sharing a sports surface with the best talent in the world of a sport. I was captivated. I was star-stricken. I was learning from these guys, and they were approachable. That's what was so cool.
Yeah.
I talked to the JCs, I talked to the Josh Davies and the Danny Millers and the Aaron Tholeys and Adam Connolly. He runs Super 7 down in Australia. He played for Miami Effect. Those guys came to Rampage. We played all the
Yeah.
fucking time.
What other sport
Yeah.
do you have access to the professional level of players? There isn't one. There isn't one. Not they're doing a PR thing or a fundraiser thing. Like it's just unheard of with any other professional sport that you have the access to these athletes that you do in paintball.
Agreed. And what was really cool is I grew up playing with these guys. They were always better than me. They were always at least a notch ahead of me. But I was pacing with them. Like, you know what I mean? Like they never
Yeah.
they never outpaced me in the sense of like they lapped me, but I never let it get worse than that because I was so driven to keep
Yeah.
up. And my skill went through the roof because I lived, eat, and breathe paintball. And you were able to back then, and you still can now, more
Yeah.
technology wise. But back then, I worked for Brian. Like we would clean the field, we'd practice till midnight, clean the field for the morning renters. Like I wanted to be at the field. I wanted the smell. I wanted the
Yeah.
stickiness and the oily feeling on my hands. I was addicted to it. I found it at a time that there was rich people, poor people, recovering drug addicts, newfound drug addicts. There was parents,
Yeah.
kids, brothers, sisters. It was one of those things where, and when I tell you, for anybody listening who might be thinking, oh, paintball is starting to sound a little bit intriguing, it's one of those rare sports that when you're on the field, you can literally switch on a part of your primal self, your competitive, ruthlessness, aggressive self. And the moment you leave the netting and lift your mask, we're hugging, we're laughing, we're talking about that great move that happened or that bonehead move
Yeah.
that I did that, made me get lit up on the one side. There's something to be said about physicality and pain shared experience that just opens up these doors of connection. And it was
Yeah.
incredible. And you said it best. No other sport has touched me in that way where it hooked me. And literally, I've had a hook in me for over 20 years.
Yeah, and I mean, I see a lot of the similarities, like that aggressive nature sport, that physicality, that intensity, that competition. Playing hockey for majority of my life. But the difference, the very stark difference, I know, and I saw it instantly. The first time I played at the field, or the first event I played, is that yeah, you shut it off when you cross the netting, when that horn goes, when that flag's hung, when you walk off that field. Any animosity, any hostility is left on the field. And then you go and you chat. Because I mean, a lot of us that are playing still now, we played against or with each other multiple years ago, right? And paintball's, I think it's got the community and the culture. It used to be it used to be quite divided when I the first season I ever played of competitive paintball. If you're on a team, it was your team. That was the only thing that mattered. You didn't have friends outside of your team. Like when the game was over, if you lost, you were you had a hate on for the team that beat you, and you wouldn't go and you wouldn't discuss the match afterwards or go make friends with anyone else. It was very insular. It was very like a lot of silos. And coming back in 2023, I guess it would have been, that was one of the biggest things that I noticed about this community is how much that's changed and evolved from 17 years ago when I played last. How much more family based, family rooted, community oriented. Yeah, it was the biggest thing that stuck out to me, and very very grateful, very happy to see that. I know playing hockey growing up, it was no different. Like you were not friends off the ice. You didn't do that. You didn't do that. That was almost a betrayal to your team, right? So that's the biggest thing that I see different in this sport from others is just how much of a family unit truly everyone is, and yeah, we're competitors on the field, but when we come off, we're genuinely interested in how everyone's doing. We look out for each other. We try and boost each other up, and just try and always be there for your brother or sister.
Yeah, I agree. The culture has shifted a lot, and I've always kept my finger on the pulse. Like you, I had a large break on off. In 2008, I moved down to Nova Scotia for my graduation year, and I actually played a couple local tryouts and kind of some fun like reball in Moncton. That was kind of cool. They have an
Yeah,
indoor soccer arena, and they set up reball. That was neat with strict union guys. And the culture down there was very new, and I was coming from Alberta. And in '08, you got to remember Edmonton Impact had just went pro. So that's the only
yeah.
Canadian pro team that exists. Hopefully
And
that
sorry, what
changes in
year was that?
2026.
2008?
That was 2008. So Edmonton Impact went pro in '07. They played Huntington Beach
Okay.
MPPL 7-man, and they got second place to Blast. So my brain is like an
Wow.
encyclopedia because I remember these moments because I was such a fan. And so Edmonton Impact just went pro. So all these players that I had grown up playing with, because at the time in '06, I would say it was probably when Western Canadian paintball peaked. Reason I say that is because there was no pro teams. And all the
Yeah.
pro players like the Justin Cornells and all them, he was on specifically a team called XPC. So he played with a lot of guys. Mike Gingras, Izzo was his nickname. I don't remember his real name. He went to go be a pilot. And then there was Impact. So Bart created Impact, but they were a 7-man amateur team. They were 7-man Div 1, the highest
Yeah.
ranking you can get, but it wasn't quite pro yet. They were very, very good. And then Josh
Yeah.
Davey, who was from Edmonton, he was playing with Oakland Assassins. And then you had like Mike Carey and Darcy Schlickenmeyer from Central Alberta and Calgary playing for Chicago Aftershock. And this is back in the day,
Right.
right before the housing boom, but everybody was doing well. There was money, economy
Yeah.
is banging. So we had a legacy. And I think that's what the culture back then had is we had pros to aspire to. We had up and coming teams that were likely going to go pro. They were on the trajectory and it was really undeniable. It was just a matter of when. And
Yeah.
then we had amateurs keeping pace. Basically, we were able to fill those voids very, very fast. Like as soon as Edmonton Impact went pro and only Edmonton Impact went pro, that first MPPL 7-man, that first half of '07, we had kids and even older guys chomping at the bit, knowing that I'm here and it's not a far
Yeah.
jump and maybe I'll get my shot. Maybe I'll get my chance.
It
Yeah.
amplifies when you see people that you're playing against all the time take that jump, right? It shows
Yeah.
you that, hey, this is attainable if you put the work in. And because I was just playing with that guy last week, and there he is down in the States playing professional paintball. It
Yeah.
is attainable, right? And you can kind of see another wave of that happening right now in our local scene, which we haven't seen in a long time. But the guys going down to the States, the Echoes playing too, and challenging. And then we have Pag Factory that goes down there, and they did it for and very successful down there. Like they had a great event there in Vegas. Basically put on a clinic for everyone.
Hmm.
Bird boys. They're making the foray into the NXL. We might see another team formed from our local scene go down and play in the NXL series next year. Like
Hmm.
just that little momentum, right? You see one team do it, that guys you play with, guys you play against, go down there and show that it can be done. It definitely ignites a fire, and it definitely drags the rest of us along, right?
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think the Western Canada scene, but especially here in Alberta, we've seen a resurgence lately, and it's fantastic. Got to give a shout out to Chris Folis and Emma Carey for creating the APL, really putting an official and a legitimized
Absolutely.
stamp on our scene and our community. I also want to address real quick because you had mentioned you were playing paintball from say '07 when you first got involved and you were there for a little bit, and then you jumped to 2023. My story is very similar in '08 when I went home, and I say home because I'm from Nova Scotia. I went back for a year, came back for school. I tried out for a team called Cardiff Epic. So that's when the CXBL, the Canadian X-Ball League, had a Western conference.
Yeah.
The problem is Edmonton Impact was in the CXBL and they won the CXBL like 5 years running. And it was expensive.
Yeah.
It was a legit professional league where you had to buy a franchise, you had to pay for all your paint in advance, players had to try out and pay fees. It
Yeah.
was it was the real deal. It was as close to legitimate professional sports from a paintball perspective, other than the current incarnation that existed. I would put and people even still talk about the CXBL. It was phenomenal. And then they had the AXBL, the
Absolutely.
American X-Ball League in the States. I tried it for the
Yeah.
MXL, which was the minor X-Ball League. It was the feeder system. And I made it on a team. So shout out to Tina Redfern, but love her. Her and her husband Warren, they funded the team, brought up a bunch of local killers, and we played well. And it was a great entry level into it. The next year, I blew up my ACL. I tore up my leg. It was just
Oh man.
fucking wrecked. So I took a year off, ended up being 3 years. And then I came back in 2014. Good buddy of mine, Calvin Foster, shout out Foss. He didn't stop playing. That guy's played more paintball than
Yeah,
I think I've had days on this earth. That guy is bananas. He plays so much paintball, it's crazy.
he is.
Calls me up on a
Yeah.
Tuesday, and I knew CPPL Nationals was happening at PAG. Calls me up and he said, "Do you have a gun?" I said, "Yep." He's like, "You working this weekend?" I said, "Nope." Like, "You want to play Nats?" Like, "I'm in. Let's play." So we played. got second place, which was awesome. I was totally stoked at that. And then the year after
Absolutely.
we won, the year after we won Div 2 Nats. And I hang my hat on. That's one of my favorite ones.
That was minor threat. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Nice.
so from 14 to probably the pandemic, just when the CPPL folded, I was on and off, inconsistent, an event here, event
Yeah.
there, didn't really play all that much. And then COVID happened. And I'll never forget this because I talk to Mike Carey about it all the time. Got to give a shout out to Mike Carey. MR Paintball,
Mike Carey's the
CPPL,
man.
like he's a character. I got to give it to him. He's a cat, but shout out for sure. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Getting geared up for Nats, or I think it was one of the winter events, one of the two, and this online shitstorm about he doesn't give enough for his prizes. He's making millions of dollars. And if only these people knew Mike's personality, they had no idea the door they were knocking on at all. And I
Yeah.
still remember it to this day. I actually have some of the screenshots saved on my laptop.
Oh,
I
really?
private message every shit talker in the comments, private, and a couple of them were like, stop messaging me. Every time they would make a post, I'd private message them and be like, you have no fucking idea what you're talking about. You
Yeah.
have no idea what insurance costs. You have no idea what paint costs. You have no idea paint
Hmm.
sourcing. This is before the pandemic. Supply chain wasn't even a fucking issue. Like shipping costs were
Yeah.
nil. Paint was affordable. Like this isn't even like the fact of Emma and Chris basically saving paintball during COVID with WPN paintball,
Yeah.
and people say, oh, China ball, all that stuff. It's like, well, it's that or nothing, so you choose. But
Right.
he called it. He called it. He's like, CPPL's done, folded, and I knew it was coming. I was devastated. My heart sank. I'm like, this is the only legitimate league we have in all of Western Canada. Like, this is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
all for like the most entitled, ignorant comments because they have no idea.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you have no idea
Nothing.
the tens of thousands of dollars the monthly lease is for some of these properties. Do you know how many
Absolutely.
$70 cases at 25% margin you need to sell to make rent? like you have
Yeah.
no idea what it takes.
You look anywhere across this country, Alberta is the cheapest place to play paintball. And I think it's been that way for a very long time
Very long time.
because of Mike Carey, Emmer Paintball, Paintball Gear, Chris Follis, Emma Carey. Like they all are the reason why this sport is still going because people can still quote unquote afford to play it. You go
Yeah.
anywhere else, you're spending, close to $100 a case, field fee, air. You got to pay for air at some of these fields. Like there is no place in this country that's as cheap to play paintball as here. So for, like you said, the entitlement, right? The people that don't understand jack squat about how to run, promote, organize, tournament, a legitimate tournament, and the costs that go into that. It blows my mind that these people can say what they said or just ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
Yeah, it's crazy. I still remember it to this day. And I talk to Mike and I laugh about it because really there was no other emotion after a couple of years of seeing the CPPL folded and really just the local scene that I think Chris and Emma picked it up pretty quickly, but they didn't really put their stamp on it till 2024, really when the pandemic calmed down.
Yeah.
They really kind of notarized it as the APL, which is amazing. Shout out to them. It's incredible. That gap for me, it's almost a decade gap from 2014 on and off for a few years. And then 2024, I got excited about paintball again. Where it's at, especially
Yeah.
locally. I got excited for, the Blitz boys and the Pag Factory boys. And, the year before it was Collision and seeing all the old souls come out of it. Cause once you have the hook, you're done. And I think I'm trying to find a word, maybe like provenance, I guess would be a good word. Like I see all the Glenn Chases and the Kyle Pisters and
Yeah.
Schultz and all these guys that been playing for 20 years and they're coming back out, but now they have a story. They have a career, they have children, they have investments, they have
Yeah.
businesses, but the same paintball still exists. The markers still shoot just as fast. They're a little bit more air
Yeah.
efficient. but that's about the only difference. The concept is still the same. It's like
Absolutely.
riding a bike, and you see these old guys picking it up, getting on there, crawling on their bellies, getting that booty moving,
Yeah,
and they're still shooting people. And it's like, you still got it, kid. Let's go.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's one, and I don't know, I tell this to everyone. Paintball, it's once you start it, you can't quit. Like there's no quitting the sport. Yeah, you'll take breaks, and some breaks are going to be shorter than others. Some are going to be longer than others. I mean, I was 17 years between the first time I played it, the first season I played, and then when I came back to it. But when it gets a hold of you, there's absolutely no quitting it. You cannot get rid of that feeling that it evokes out of you every time you hear a marker shoot, or you hear a horn go off, and it's always there. It's always there. Like I didn't play at all. I didn't go out and play woods ball or anything in the 17 years that I took off. But every once in a while, when YouTube came on, and I check in and see what was going on in paintball, see how paintball was doing. Because I mean, in '07, it was really strong. It was going really strong. Like the NPPL, the PSP was still going then, and it was the tail end of the golden era of paintball as far as its popularity worldwide. And yeah, I would go in and I would check things out and be, oh man, Impact's still Impact's still a thing. That's awesome. Oh, JC's still playing. That's awesome. Like all these faces that you saw from years and years ago, and they're still doing it and they're still representing. And yeah, so I'd always check in from time to time, but it wasn't until my son was old enough to actually to go and play, and that happened to be in 2022. He wanted to go play paintball, and so he said for his birthday, yeah, he wanted to go try it out. So we took him out to Bragg Creek, and first person I see walking up to the registration booth there was Emma, and just the look of surprise on her face and the big smile, and she's like, oh, all these people from before coming back, and then now seeing the next generation of potential paintballers coming up. The reason why a lot of us leave for so long is we're taking care of life stuff and having families and raising kids, and now they're getting to the age where we want them to experience the good times that we had in paintball, and hopefully they feel the same way and take to it and keep playing.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's so interesting, and I love your perspective on it, because it's a sustainable. We've talked about this with your team, Crusaders, Shadow Crusaders. It's such a fatherly figure approach to the game that I didn't see when I started. It was cutthroat, 15 balls a second, permanent scars on my back of these freaking welt rings. Like,
Yeah,
it was ruthless,
yeah,
truthfully. But that's what drew me to it. Like like, I actually don't think, if I was 16 years old and I seen today's iteration of paintball, I don't know if I would be as gravitated towards it. Now, that being said, I think we pushed a lot of people away back in the day because of it was just in your face. It was super polarizing.
absolutely.
It
It
was
was.
it was like, I call it counterculture, but at the time it was like, these guys are crazy. Like, these guys are like nuts. Whereas now it's so much more of close to a legitimized sport. We have growing content of podcasts and YouTube channels. We've rebranded the sport to be called Major League Paintball. You ever curious, go check out majorleaguepaintball.com. That's our alma mater. Let's go. And uh like, when I see all this stuff legitimizing the sport, and how we're so privileged to live in Alberta because we have the only Canadian pro team, and what Bart's done this year has basically bought all the biggest names. I'm hoping that overflows into the local scene. I'm going to do my best to knock on his door and knock on some of the players' doors to try to get something, like a signing or a clinic or
Absolutely.
a practice, or, man,
Yeah.
anything. Like, because I know that JC clinic that I helped organize when he was in Bragg, it sold out in 30 minutes.
Oh
It
yeah,
was
that was
gone.
that was clutch.
It was
Yeah.
we had people flying in from Ontario.
Yeah.
Like, it was
That's
crazy.
huge.
Yeah, yeah. And we got to give a shout out to Bart Yakimic and the Yakimic family, what they've done. I'm super stoked for that new documentary coming out, All That Matters. I heard on the Spick and Span podcast that the Yakimics have a little spot in there, everything they've done. I don't know the all the details, but I'm pretty sure Bart is part owner of the
Oh
MLPB,
yeah,
and then and because I think he bought Go Sports or something at some point, and then MLPB
he did.
bought
Yeah,
them this
that's I
year.
heard that too. Majority owner of the MLPB too. What I heard. I mean, I have no verifiable proof to back up that claim. Just something I heard, but
Yeah,
and that's probably I'm sure there's a big reason why professional paintball has been able to carry on as long as it has and be in as good of a state is because of the involvement of people like Bart. Like he anything he undertakes, he goes all in and he invests everything he has into it, and it's credit to him that the league is as strong as it is and as popular as it is. Being for professional sports, we're the sport of paintball is absolutely still in its infant stage, right? When you look at the big four, the football, baseball, hockey, these sports have been around for 70 plus to 100 plus years. Like we're just a blip on the radar in the terms of a sport uh, chronological timeline that, his involvement has definitely helped keep it somewhat relevant and in the spotlight as to as much of an extent as it can be. So, big kudos to him.
yeah, and to speak to the legitimacy of paintball, got to give more shout outs. Tom Cole, I've been listening to almost every podcast he goes on. He's the commissioner or the president of Major League Paintball, formerly known as the NXL, formerly known as PSP, et cetera, et cetera. To speak to the legitimacy of the league, some of the small things, because I know like my brothers grew up playing minor hockey and they traveled to Bangor, Maine. Like my dad has a signed picture with Paul Correa. Used to he
Yeah.
obviously that was where he grew up playing, and he taught hockey schools down there.
Okay.
And like now when we go to play in the States, when you pay your entry fee, you get $20,000 of insurance. I don't know of any major sport that does that.
No,
I
I
like
don't think so.
that. Like, so when you go play minor hockey or basketball or football or golf or whatever you want internationally, if you're Canadian going to the States, that's all on you. The league,
Yeah,
in my opinion, that is not highlighted enough. The fact that the league does that, like we don't
absolutely.
play a bang bang sport. Like we're not physical. We're not.
Yeah.
We're not hockey. We're not football. And yet they
Hmm.
still want to insure you for broken ankles, blown shoulders, which I mean, injuries happen. It is what it is. I mean, my God,
Yeah,
Tiger Woods had knee injuries, like Jesus. But that is encouraging to me as a 35-year-old parent. That's
absolutely.
awesome. That gets me fired up to know we don't have that locally, and hopefully we get there one day. But it speaks to the trajectory that paintball is on in the epicenter, which is the United States, but I would say globally, we've now set a precedent that this is possible. We have a
100%.
blueprint for success for amateur sports to be palatable from parents and from more mature audiences. And that gets me fired up. I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's 2020, it's 2023, or sorry, 2024, this past season. You're playing for a team called Crusaders. You created a team. Talk to me about that. Creating a team, wanting to build it, the mindset, the buy-in. Tell me about that. The struggles, the triumphs. Kind of run me through your 2024, what it looked like, and maybe going into 2025, what we can expect.
Okay, well, we'll go back to 2022 when the whole idea of starting up a paintball team called the Crusaders came about. It was after I took my son out to play paintball for his first time, and after we played, he really enjoyed it. I mean, we just played out in the woods. We played with our friends from across the street, and their family and our family went out, and we just had a great day. And on the way out, of course, when you're coming down from Evan and the Horwood field at Bragg Creek there, you got to walk past the arena. So as we're walking past that, I look in where they have where they do the awards presentation. They have the picture of Andy Warburton up there, and Andy was a very good friend of mine back when I played. We both started out on Emma's Vengeance team together, and we were thick as thieves when we played together on that team. And I didn't know it as much at the time, but being away from the sport and kind of keeping tabs on things and seeing Andy, how much he immersed himself into the community, the paintball community, and just seeing what he was involved with, and just his outlook towards this, not as much the sport, but as the people involved in the sport. He's Andy was a large fella, right? Same as me. I'm not the most in shape, but that was the thing about paintball, is that people like us could participate in it and we could do well in it. And Andy was just he was a true leader. Like, he was just, I don't know. He was a very special man. Very special man. Very, very sad day when he left us. But anyways, we saw that picture. So I, kind of explained to Logan just, how important of a person that Andy was when I played paintball, and kind of explained to him just, what he was like, and how he was with people, and he was very welcoming, very inclusive, and that's a good quality to have. And so after explaining that, showed Logan the arena there, and explained to him kind of what would be out on the arena. All the bunkers were deflated, so I was explaining to him that this was a different format of paintball, and that they have these inflatable bunkers, and you play 5-on-5, and one team plays against another. And as soon as I mentioned, that there's teams involved, you just see this little glimmer in Logan's eye, and his ears perk up, and he's like, "There's paintball teams?" He says to me. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, there's paintball teams. I played on one a long time ago, and it looks like I think there's still probably teams that are still playing now." And he's like, "Could we start a team?" Well, I'm like, "Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. If that's something that you'd like to do, we could absolutely look into it." But I said, maybe let's come and try it out first before we get too far down the rabbit hole with this. So the following weekend was the last weekend for the arena that year. So we showed up, and of course there was Emma there. We got our rental gear from her, and then Mike had his little booth set up there, and he was teching guns, and we went chatted with him, and he said, "Yeah, come by later." And he goes, "I'll give you a couple of one of my electric markers there, and you can try that out on the arena." So we went down with our rental gear and our coveralls and whatnot, and we get into the pit, and we're getting everything set up and ready to go. And first two teams went out on the field, and they were getting ready to start. And Logan was sitting up on the benches there in the pits. And as soon as the game started, and I mean, like you said, your first experience hearing speedball being played for the first time, his was the exact same. I've never seen somebody's eyes so big and almost popping out of the skull when that 3-2-1 go 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 went, and everyone started shooting their electro markers, and he turns his head around and he's watching. And as soon as it got a little bit quieter, when the kind of play started to kind of die down, he turned his head back to me and he's like, "You know what, Dad? I think we're in for a world of hurt." And I'm like, "Son, you don't even know how true that statement is." So we were all ready to go, and I'm like, "Okay, it's our turn, bud. You ready to go?" And yeah, got out there, and his very first point, he made it out to the Dorito side, got into his first primary bunker, didn't get shot, made it to the next Dorito, didn't get shot. Our team, I think I think we had Steve Lee on our side for that first point, and a couple others, but we ended up pulling the point out, and Logan and myself, we didn't get shots. We're like, Jesus, you know what, this is not bad. This is pretty decent. Pretty good welcome back to the sport after such a long break. And then Logan being 10 years old, he was pretty happy with his performance in that first one. So we went back in the pits, we got loaded up, and right back out onto the field and did her again. And only this time it went a little bit different. Logan did the same thing. He went over into the Doritos, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody ran down on him and bunkered him out in his Dorito there. But the guy almost ran past him. Logan was so small, right? He just folded into that Dorito and couldn't really see him. And I don't know, I think the guy put a couple extra shots into him because I think it startled him. But he's very apologetic. And at first I was worried. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to have a crying son here that I'm gonna have to deal with. And And after the point ended and we got back to the netting, I just said to him, like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, that was fun. Let's do it again." So I think from that point he was pretty hooked into the sport of paintball, and we discussed it a little bit, and he really wanted to be a part of the team. He hadn't played any team sports up until that, well, at all. He'd been to some soccer camps and just nothing of a team sport orientation really had done it for him. So, but he definitely wanted to start a team with and play some paintball. So from that day forward, we went back out, I think a couple more times. Soon as we left the field that day, I was already online looking for gear and reaching out to Mike and getting some pricing and whatnot. And Mike's always been good to me, so he helped us out quite a bit for getting our first setups and came back out and we just played some woods ball and we ran across some other people. Riley plays with the Crusaders. We got playing some wood ball with him. Casey McIntyre, he's now with the Mavericks. He was out and about, so the next couple of weeks we were just kind of playing some wood ball with them and talking about speedball, and they were looking at maybe making that jump too and getting into the tournament side of things. And kind of from there is where Crusaders got its initial launch. So from that, we went and we played a couple of the winter events up in Edmonton, the three-man rookie, and we had some decent early success playing in those. We got a couple third places and kind of got some momentum running, and just over the course of the next summer season there, we picked up some more new people, and we had a pretty consistent roster for that first year. A couple injuries and just life stuff, and we had a couple guys in and out of the roster, but we had some really good people like Alex Riccati came out and played with us in a couple events that first year. That was a tremendous boost for our guys being so new to the sport, and he definitely showed us some things that we had to change in our games and work towards and whatnot. And I think we had Sam Coulter come out in that first year too with us to an event and sub in with us, and he was really good too. So, and that speaks to the community you have too, right? Is there's always somebody out there who's wanting and willing to help out, the new guys, the young guys, kind of make their way in this sport and in the community. So yeah, it was a really eye-opening first season for our program, but very, very productive season as well. I think what we started to build in that first year, you know, I think definitely garnered a lot of interest from other new players and even some older players. I think just the approach that the Crusaders program has taken to, not necessarily looking for or trying to get all of the best players, you know, in our community to get on the team and just, try and shoot for instant success. It was we want our program to be open and inviting for, the newer players to come in and become part of a team and, help each other out, push each other and grow as a team, not as individuals, right? So that's how it was initially, laid out and set up for our program to operate. And I think with the people that we brought on over the last couple of years, there's definitely been buying into that. And yeah, we're all pushing for the same goal and grow the sport and, you know, help your buddies out, grow together as a team, and keep reaching for those goals.
Yeah, I love it. I had the privilege of guesting with you guys for one event. You weren't able to make it up for that Edmonton E5
Yes, that's
novice
right.
event.
That's
So
right.
yeah, so I wasn't donning a Crusaders jersey, so it was kind of fake, but you know how it is. So we still got the podium though, so that's what's up. No, I love that. I love that origin story because I think there's a lot of parallels with almost everybody that I know that got hooked on paintball. Is at one point you watched these these speedball fearless, aggressive players, and then coming off, it was like Nobody's at each other's throats. Everybody's a friend, talking about moves. To give anybody who's listening to this that's very unfamiliar with the sport a little bit of information, paintball is extremely safe, extremely safe. When we talk about tournaments, our markers are chronographs. So that's a device that measures the velocity of the paintballs leaving your marker. We are required to be under a certain limit, and the referees check that every single point. There's zero tolerance. Our masks that we wear that protect our face, which is your most vulnerable part of your body because you don't want any eye injuries or mouth injuries or potentially ear injuries. We have to wear chin straps. That's something relatively new. That was not, excuse me, a thing when I grew up. And if it so happens that you were to run, dive, flip, whatever happened and the mask came off of you, the referees will literally dive on you and sacrifice their bodies to get shot by paintballs until you get your mask off, and then you have to leave the field. So if you think about a hockey game, you have two referees and two linemen for 10 people on the field. You have, or actually 12, you have two goalies and then 5 players on each team. We have
Yeah.
10 total,
Yeah.
and we have 8 referees. Like, so the margin
Yeah, it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio,
for
right?
a tomfoolery, let's call it, is almost 0%. It can get out of hand because again, you're dealing with electronic markers, and even at 10.5 balls a second, which is, some people might think that's fast. That's about, what is that, 66% of what I grew up playing in terms of a rate of fire. So you can get shot,
Yeah.
and you're going to get bruises, welts. It's going to feel red. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting, that sort of thing. I've sustained one injury in my career playing paintball, and I blew up my shoulder, and it's because I tripped. I was playing on a tire field and I stepped in a gopher hole, and I landed on my shoulder and blew up my shoulder. It's not a high frequency,
Yeah.
injury sport. And you have people that can play standing up in the back that don't have to be overly athletic, and you still get that pump. You still get that adrenaline. You still get that camaraderie. And it's phenomenal. And it's so, people are just not aware. And my goal is to just expose
No,
it
they
as
aren't.
best I can. Right. And I feel like you're
Absolutely.
a great medium for that because you will hit a lot of metrics that I can't. We're both parents and do all that sort of stuff, but I don't want to say I'm in my physical prime, but no, totally kidding. It's
Not many of
it's
us
just,
are
it's
anymore.
yeah, no doubt, right? Yeah, even some of the kids now, it's just crazy. But it's so
Yeah.
encouraging to me to hear that full circle story when you started off young, created a family, now you're kind of rebranding, but it doesn't change. The other thing I will say is I am a firm believer. Again, I'm biased. I love the sport. I think paintball makes you a smarter athlete. And I'm going to explain that here real quick. And we're going to close the chapter on paintball here shortly. And we're going to get into mental health because
Yeah.
I want to pick your brain. But you think of all the major sports, except for golf. Golf is unique, but baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. Your playing surface never changes. Never changes. You can have minor ice differences or different grass versus turf, but
Yeah.
a football field is 100 yards. An NHL rink is, I think, 180 feet long. And you got the red line and the blue lines, like they don't change. In paintball, the rules don't change much. The markers, they kind of change, but our our fields change every day. The angles, the bunkers, the
Yeah.
positioning, the like, so you have to bring competencies and skills you have to work on every single day, which is true. Your conditioning, your marker skills, your
Yeah.
communication, it's very dynamic. But then the actual playing field itself changes every single event, every single practice, non-stop. So you have to bring a level of
Absolutely.
IQ, and you have to be able to digest new information that much faster. And if you start off in paintball and
Absolutely.
then take that to say hockey, when you're on a power play or you're on a breakaway, you'll make better, quick decisions. And I've heard the best pros in the world, Archie Montemayor, Marcelo Margot, Tyler Harmon, I've heard them all say the exact same thing. That's what attracts them to the sport because it challenges them in ways that other sports can't.
Absolutely. It's hard. It's hard to get complacent, right? It's very hard in this sport to get complacent because the very nature of it kind of prevents you from, if you want to be successful, if you want to be competitive, it does not allow you to just show up and go through the motions because this is how the game is played. It's, in a sport like hockey, I'll speak to hockey mostly because that's, what I spent majority of my life playing. Like once you got to a certain level in hockey, a lot of it was the same thing. I mean, yes, there would be certain plays that, would change, but the fundamental way to play the game of hockey was pretty much the same every time. Like the only thing that changed was your opponents, right? You certain game plans for certain opponents, but sport of paintball, yeah, you do have different opponents that you play every game, but now you have to play those different opponents on a different field layout every event. So you really you cannot turn your brain off and just show up and go out and shoot paint if you want to have any chance of any level of success, right? It just becomes an exercise of how quickly can you empty your wallet out, right, with nothing to show for it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very hard to buy success in the sport, right? I mean, we've seen professional paintball teams
Well,
try. That's why,
yeah, we might see how that works out in the next
well,
season,
I
but
mean, that's the ultimate definition of putting your eggs in one basket.
absolutely.
Like you have the most, esteemed players in the league for 20 plus years. What if you don't win?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've seen it.
Like,
We've seen it very recently
like
too, right? A team attempt to implement that formula, and it did not work out well at all, right?
yeah.
So,
So I mean, like
it,
that's going to be a great conversation piece for the year. Is like I'm excited. I mean, they're going to be wearing Edmonton Impact
absolutely,
jerseys. We're going to see player markers. I mean, we live in Edmonton. I live in Edmonton. You're 3 hours away, but like the APL has
yeah,
ties to Edmonton Impact. I'm excited for it.
absolutely.
But there is that thing in the back of your head where like, what if they don't live up to the? Because like, really, what's the bar now? If you don't run the table, like, is that the bar?
Well, yeah, and you have to look at it. Everything's everything with money has evolved, right? Especially in sports and business. What's the return on the investment, right? That's the big key, right? Yeah, you can invest a ton of money into something, but if it doesn't return the right return on investment, you know, is that now the barometer of success, right?
Well, I'm going to take a little bit different approach here, and I'm not saying this in a disrespectful manner, but I think Bart's just throwing around fuck you money because that's two back to back second places at Cup, and he's one of the only ones maybe other than
Yeah,
Todd Adamson that has the ability to do that. Sarge probably in Houston as well, but I think it's fuck you money where
yeah,
he's like, I just want the goddamn cup, like I just want the trophy.
100%.
Like,
Yeah,
so like, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way because I mean, if you got it, use it. I mean, fuck, like, who cares? Like, you know what I mean?
absolutely.
Like,
What's the
like this is like crazy enough. Marcelo, in my opinion, is the goat. Ryan Greenspan's probably one
yeah,
B, but in terms of skill, in terms of IQ, I mean, he fucking wrote a book called Paintball IQ. Like, the guy
yeah,
is
absolutely,
ridiculous,
absolutely.
and not
Yeah,
like this is the first time he's been solely a paid professional player.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
It is
That's
crazy.
crazy. He was part owner of Field One, Dynasty Champs Club. Like there was a lot of things that led up to him always having purely, I believe, a paintball income. And I believe he has side businesses now with Slice House and stuff. And I see stuff on his social media.
Yeah,
But I believe, as far as I'm aware, this is the first time he's had a significant enough income as a player. That's that's crazy
it is. Yeah,
in the greatest way. I'm fucking beyond stoked. But that's
yeah,
insane.
yeah. Now to
Go
see
ahead.
what six,
Yeah.
8, 10 of the top, 30 players in the league, all in the same roster, all paid salary players. It's a big step in paintball, right?
Yeah. I mean, heads have to roll. Like, there's going to be people that leave the roster for sure. And if I had to guess,
Yeah,
and this is purely speculation, I guess Zach and Zane are likely going to leave and focus on the business. Wemette doesn't play very much anymore, but you have up and coming players like Jordan Panilio. I was excited to
yeah,
see that guy play. He kind of dropped the ball a little bit last year's cup against Dynasty, against Marcelo, actually, serendipitous enough. Is he
yeah,
going to get playing time? Because part of me is like, I'm stoked to see this all star roster,
yeah,
but I also, I mean, me and you being where we're at, I like to see the future. Paintball Fit, Blast Camp, New
sure,
England Hurricanes. That fires me up
absolutely.
almost as much. Not quite, because I'm still a fan. Like, I still like good paintball, and I like,
Oh, and I mean, if you're from Alberta and you were playing paintball when those guys were coming up and cutting their chops and taking that step, you will always be a fan of Edmonton Impact.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's ingrained in an Alberta paintball. Like you will always have a soft spot, and you will always, whether you do it quietly or outwardly, you'll always cheer for them in some form or manner, right? But like
Mm-hmm.
you said, I do enjoy seeing the teams like the paintball fits, the in-house family, grew up together, blood or bonds are as thick as blood, even though you may not be related. Like those, they're true families. The Hurricanes, same thing, right? I really like the Hurricanes. I love what Coach Bianca is doing with them, and just the message that he, always always comes out with. I try and emulate him quite a bit in my own dealings with paintball. Like he's
Yeah.
just there's a level of calmness and a level of, well, I
Stoicism.
mean, the zenness, right? He just epitomizes that, and I think that definitely has a big spot in the sport of paintball and in sport in general. Playing hockey, I definitely dealt or had to play for, be coached by a lot of taskmasters and a lot of yelling and just that hard nose, you know, they're going to whip it out of you. But I really appreciate what Bianca is doing with the Hurricanes, and there's more than one way to skin a cat, and you know you can attract more flies with honey than you can with vinegar, right? So I think approach definitely has a big impact on what you can bring out of yourself, bring out of your teammates, your players. So really like what those two camps are doing, and I hope that there is, those teams and a few of the other ones that can still, provide a challenge and not let the impact walk away with it. Because I mean, if you ask me, I feel like since I've been back and watching and following and keeping up with the pro paintball, this year I felt had the most parity in the league than any of the recent years previous. Like it wasn't a guarantee that one team was going to win majority of the events. I mean, yes, Legion won a couple, Aftershock won. Um, who were the other ones? Or did Aftershock win a
Aftershock.
couple?
Aftershock got second.
They got second. They didn't win one this
Yeah.
year.
No.
Who are the other winners? Legion.
Dynasty won
Um,
Vegas,
yeah.
and then Legion won Texas and Atlantic because Texas had the Sunday
Oh, right.
canceled, so it
And
was two in the
then
same event.
yeah,
Then
and then
Tampa won
Damage
Windy
won.
City, and then Fit won
Right.
Cup.
Yeah, yeah,
So to go back to your parody statement, Tom Cole said on the PTG podcast, shout out PTG, he said that 19 of the 20 teams made Sunday at least once. And the only team that didn't, NYX, got relegated.
yeah. Oh, I mean
That's
yeah, that
that's
speaks
unheard of.
volumes right there, right?
That's unheard
Yeah,
of in professional paintball. That's unheard of. Because professional
yeah,
paintball, for those that people don't know, it's very much like the MLB. Because we talk about Edmonton Impact, the deepest pockets, they're the Yankees of the
yeah,
sport. The paintball fits and the New England Hurricanes are the Seattle Mariners. Like
yeah,
shoestring budgets where one player, Alex Goldman on Impact this year, is likely making over double, if not more. I'm actually pretty sure the New England Hurricanes is the only unpaid team in the league. None of those players are paid.
yeah. I think
They're
so.
like they have
Yeah,
sponsorship dollars, I believe. Now I could be wrong. Don't
yeah,
quote me on that, but I think I heard somebody say that.
yeah. I believe you're right on that one,
Yeah, and the
which is
Hurricanes got
crazy.
second to Dynasty in Vegas in their
Yeah.
second pro year. That's amazing. So I love that. It speaks to where the sport is, right? So we're gonna close the chapter on paintball here real quick. I got two
You got
questions for you, and then we're gonna get into it.
okay.
Alberta paintball, APL, Canada paintball. What are you most excited about, and what do you think is hindering from getting to where it could be, its potential? We'll start off with first what you're stoked about.
Hey, run the questions by me again. APL.
Yeah. So Alberta paintball, Canadian paintball, keep it here. Maybe not the NXL or the MLPB, but here, let's even just keep it just Alberta. What are you most stoked about? And then what do you think is actually holding us back from reaching our potential?
Well, I think the thing that I'm most stoked about is I think the emergence of not necessarily new players, but new teams, and more so like I'm speaking in the X Ball division of the APL. Right there was the Crusaders that took a step into the X Ball ring this year, along with the Mavericks. both teams in their first year, and I mean, our X Ball division is no joke. Like all the teams that play in that are they're deadly teams. Like any one of those teams can win on any given day. Like these guys, all these teams are comprised of players that have been playing together for, 10, 12, 15 years. Some of them have been playing 20 years. Like these guys have chemistry that has been, built upon for many, many years. And, a team like ours who just started a year ago, the Mavericks just started a year ago playing five-man novice and taking that leap this year to playing in the X Ball division against these players and these teams that have been together for many years. And, we were pulled out a couple wins, each of our teams. And I mean, Mavericks in one event, they actually made it into the quarterfinals. Their first event, their only event, first event they played, they made it into the quarterfinals. I mean, that's a huge feather in their hat. Like I like that teams are not scared to challenge themselves, right, and put themselves out of their comfort level maybe, and where it would be easier just to stick in the five-man, the lower divisions, and win events and podium every event. But guys aren't just satisfied with that. They wanna push themselves to be better, right? They don't wanna just mail it in, I guess, for lack of a better word. We all want to see what we're capable of, and we want to prove that we can hang with the best that the province has to offer. So I like that aspect. I like seeing a lot of new players, a lot of some younger players getting out there and getting more active in the speedball, and getting their first tournaments in, and getting that hunger and wanting to put the work in. There's a couple of young players that I want to mention, Talon Morash and Chase Finley. They've definitely been seeing them out at the field more. They're putting in the work, and they got their first tournament exposure last year and did really well. And it's really really cool to see those guys, with the help and encouragement from, people in our community, to give them an opportunity and go out there and give them some advice and show them some stuff. Mike Ritz is, you know, you want to talk about goats for our community. There's nobody out there that's helping out the newer players and the younger players as much as Mike is. So want to see, yeah, a lot more of that. Some other the old school players, maybe take some direction and lead from someone like Mike, and offer their knowledge and experience, and really start building up these younger players, and get some new guys out and help this community grow. As far as what's holding back the APL right now, I think probably the obvious one is just the numbers. The numbers of people that we have playing paintball in Alberta, I think is probably what will hold it to what it's currently at. If we don't have the number of players playing, the number of teams entering events, that's ultimately what's going to, slow it down or even grind it to a halt, right?
Mhm.
If you can't put enough teams in to make it worthwhile or justifiable to run an event, then you can't expect fields like Bragg Creek and Peg and Chris and Emma to run events at a loss. I mean, that's just bad business model, right?
Mhm.
So as players, we hold all the power in our hands to try and prevent that from ever happening, and these events just going away, by rallying the troops and getting everyone out there and getting people put on teams, and make sure that these events are filled up every time they run them, right?
Yeah, I agree. We're gonna save the debate for engagement for another day, because I think that's a podcast in and of itself. I agree with you. I do. We got to give a shout out to the APL player base this year. We were on the precipice of having five-man canceled multiple times, and especially teams like Maverick. I think one event they put in three teams to meet our minimum team. So shout out to
Yeah.
all the player base in APL for keeping a successful year. We ran Saturday five-man and Sunday X ball for 5 events. And that's awesome for their first year of the APL being, basically official. Shout out to all
Yeah.
the APL player base, because you guys are awesome. You guys are the reason why Chris and Emma will still continue to do this. But yeah, shout out to you guys because that's awesome. I love that. I think that's fantastic. 'Cause I think even one Saturday being canceled would almost delegitimize the league a little bit, right? So we have a
Absolutely.
successful first,
Absolutely.
inaugurational year. So that's fantastic. So shout out APL players. Let's go. I want to dive into some mental health here, man.
All
Big one
right.
here. I'm privileged to have Tom on my Facebook. And I've seen a few times where, Tom is the type of person that I feel like if I ever needed help or reach out or if you're struggling, it wouldn't just be an open ear. It wouldn't be somebody on the phone just saying, "Oh yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand." This is something that you appear to be passionate about. I don't know the backstory if you're willing to share it, but I think this is an epidemic. We experience this in paintball. Unfortunately, we've had some pretty pivotal players in our community take their own lives or pass away untimely. Life can be rough. And I think, I talk about paintball being an island of misfit toys. That really took me off guard when players started taking their own lives because I've never felt bonded more than paintball. Paintball was my outlet. Now, obviously, people have demons, and if you ever need help, please reach out to anybody, anything. Hopefully, you never get to that point. But where did this come from? Where, like, because I'm a fan, I fucking love it. I think it's great. I think this is not talked about enough. You can grow a stash all you want, and you can do all the things, but when you
Yeah.
really make that uncomfortable post on your private social media with friends and you call friends out and you're like, I know who's going to do this. Let's see who's going to do it. I think that's great. I think it challenges people's status quo. It challenges your uncomfortability to talk about it. Where did this come from? Where's this passion from? And where do you kind of hope to take it? Because I love it, man.
I just want people to feel like, they don't have to deal with whatever's going on in their life. Whether it's a down spot or, dealing with depression or dealing with work issues or, just I don't want people to feel like they have to go through stuff alone. I mean, we've all gone through, things in our lives and, maybe have dealt with depression at some point or another, or, work's, got you down or something going on in your personal life. And as men, typically and I think a lot of us being brought up by, the generation prior to us, you're kind of taught growing, you gotta be tough and don't be vulnerable and right, you gotta be a rock, you got to be strong. I know that was an overtone that I, dealt with lots growing up, and it's a tough way to go through your issues, to go through a spot in your life, to think that you have to figure it out on your own all the time, right? That's a lonely spot to be in, and I think obviously, I know we're kind of moving on from paintball, but we have some very, very, very strong advocates for this, and none other than Emma Carey at Bragg Creek there. You touched on that. In our sport, there has been a lot of our friends and opponents that have taken their life, and whether they didn't feel like they had somebody that they could talk to about what was bothering them. I don't want people to feel like they have to go through anything alone. If there's anything that I can do to help them get through it, then I'm there in a heartbeat. Like I know what it's like to go try and deal with things on your own, and it's not necessarily the healthiest way to get through things. And I think probably for me where I started to come around to that is just, my wife being just the absolute most amazing support and in my life since I've known her has helped me to reach out, right? To lean on her and to lean on, the people that I trust to get through those low spots. So, just having people there for me to do it and to help me get through, some of the low spots that I've gone through in my life, you know, really makes you realize that, you know, people are there to be there for you and to help you through it. That's the ultimate penance is to do that for somebody else, I think.
That's amazing, dude. I think we're at an epidemic personally. My
I
wife and
would
I talk
agree.
about, the rates of divorce and all that stuff, but I think people call it mental health, and I mean, you can have whatever buzzword or whatever you want to call it. I think it's kind of like a lone wolf syndrome. I think everything is so individualized nowadays. We're so disconnected by being connected. It's fake connection. I had the
Yeah.
privilege of going on a massive hike this past summer with my brothers and my cousin, and I'll like there's no other experience than doing that that will build that. We will talk about that hike for the rest of our lives. There's no
Yeah.
Zoom meeting, there's no Netflix documentary that you can watch that will be as impressionable. It doesn't exist. And if I did that by myself, it would not have meant the same. To go
No.
through that difficult struggle to get to a euphoric goal together is so bonding. And we're taught nowadays that everything is individualized. And as
Yeah.
men, we're criticized on both sides. We're in this very unique time where the concept of like toxic masculinity is talked about. So it's like, okay, so I need to be more feminine. But then you're hammered for being a soft man. So
Yeah.
because I'll be like, this is me personally in the small circles that I have, I don't cry in front of my guy friends, nor do I want to. I would rather release those emotions in a different way. And I think, and personally, me, what I think is a healthier way from a masculine standpoint. If you have frustration, you need to get it out kind of in an aggressive way. And that's where I think paintball sticks out to me is it is a meditation for me. It's a release. I feel lighter after a day of playing paintball because I just, whatever I want, I can get
Yeah.
aggressive. I can scream. I can, whatever I want. I feel like you're not allowed to do that anymore, or it's looked down upon, or it's
Yeah.
too aggressive, or it's unsafe, or the optics look bad. Well, you have to be able to control your emotions, but you can't bottle them up. They have to release at some point.
Absolutely.
But
Hmm.
like so whatever that is for you, if you've lost your job and you're struggling, you need to just get outside and scream and punch a punching bag. It's go for it. You need to do
Absolutely.
that. You need to do yourself a service and get it out, or whatever it may
Yeah.
be. I listened to a really cool quote by Simon Sinek. I don't know if you know who he is. Very, very famous motivational speaker. He's got some phenomenal concepts. I highly recommend you check him out. And he said,
Yeah.
and I'm going to butcher this quote for sure, but he said, you build trust not by offering help, but by asking for it. That's how you build trust. So I don't
That's
build a rapport with
wow.
you when
That's
I
pretty
say, hey,
profound.
yeah, when I say, Tom, if you need anything, let me know. Or Tom, I'm in a dark place. I need your help. One of those is going to build a connection much more than the other.
Absolutely. One's just words, the other one's action, right?
And he has it where when people refuse, meaning if I ask for your help and either you have too much of an ego to to be able to offer that, or maybe you diminish your value to me and you're like, I just don't know if I'm that. You rob, like, or sorry, if I don't ask you and we're friends, I'm robbing you of the opportunity and the blessing to suffer with me. That sat with
Yeah.
me so much because my wife and I
No
just
kidding.
discussed this. We just had this discussion where friendships
Yeah.
and stuff, everything now is somebody has an event on social media. If you need anything, let me know. 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 If you need, like, and that's all it is. And you could have hundreds
Yeah.
of comments like that.
Yeah.
Very rarely will you see a comment say, what hospital are you at? What room number are you in? I'm coming to see you right now. Or not even post, just
Yeah.
start driving. Right. And I'm not criticizing
Yeah.
people who may be scared to do that. Or maybe you have a life event too. Or maybe you're in the hospital and you're not a social media person. I'm not sure. But the assertiveness to just recognize that I can go into an event, a hospital. I can be in your basement. And you could just be like, man, I had a tough day at work. Just me sitting in the room with you, it gets rid of the tension. It lowers the temperature in the room, and it brings it right
Yeah.
down to an even keel. So
Yeah.
I thought that was incredible. I'm going to find it. I'm going to send it to you. But yeah, it was incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please do. Yeah. Like you mentioned, like some of the things that I post, like the route and whatnot. A lot of times, it's somebody else has posted that and I've read it. And it's like, okay, I may not know this person, but I agree with what they're saying. I fully support what they're saying. And I want, I want to share that person's message or the message that that person has shared. If it strikes a chord with me, I want to pass that on to, my friend group or anybody who sees my profile or I don't have to know them, right? There's been people on Facebook that I've reached out to and message and hey, I know we don't know each other, but you doing okay, right? Seeing something that somebody's posted and looks like they're kind of in a dark place, they don't have to be a friend of mine. I'm generally concerned for people's well-being. Like I don't want to see anybody struggle or suffer or, go through something alone. With a lot of my friends and a lot of the people in the paintball community around here, I'll check in on people. I'll shoot them a random message every once in a while and just say, hey, how you doing? I'm thinking about you. How are things going? Just, doing a wellness check kind of thing and make sure the people that, are always there for me whenever I'm at the field, I want to be there for them too and make sure that things are going okay. So I think just a lot of those messages that I put out there, yes, they are a canned message, and I think it can go both ways, right? People can post those and they can be posting them from the right place, right? From a place of true intention and whole social media and the internet age. A lot of that stuff that gets thrown around too is for show. You know what I mean? They want people will post that stuff for the likes and the reposts and just the activity of it, right? So it's I don't know. Those posts, I hope people see it for the intent that I'm resharing or putting that message out there. But with the internet and the way society is nowadays too, it can definitely be put out there for lack of intent, I guess, too, and more the give my post a like kind of thing, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think after reading your post, obviously knowing you as a person, the word I would use is genuine. Your messaging is very genuine. It's true. It's authentic. There's no riffraff. There's no icing on the cake. It's real and down to it. I want to ask if you think this is my perspective, and I'm curious yours. I think it's like a 50-50 split. It's the problem with men's mental health, men's really friendship circles and communities. I think it's 50% ego. And where that ego comes from, I'm not sure because I know that my grandfather never had a big enough ego. He was always having coffee with people. He was always helping out. He would hear from a friend of a friend. It's like, oh, so and so is replacing their roof. It's like, well, I'm off work at 4. I'll be at his house at 4:15. Like you don't like without you, you're just gonna show up with tools and go. Like, and
Yeah.
that was it. And that's how. So there was no ego there whatsoever. Then you have influence, and I'm gonna go with social media on this one because this one bugs me a lot. And whenever I see it on social media, I actually cater my social media to what I want. When I see influencers or coaches or whatever, and they say cut off anything negative in your life, or just because you have family doesn't mean you need to talk to them, or this one-sided messaging that says if something doesn't sit right with you, cut it off. And that's a fucking terrible message because we're asking men to be uncomfortable. We're asking you
Yeah.
to drop your fucking guard and tell your friends what you need. Tell, acquaintances what you'd like. Tell your wife what you have to have. And if you're trying to tell me that anything uncomfortable or anything that doesn't, pique your interest or gets you to your dreams that you have to cut off, you're fucked because
Absolutely.
uncomfortable, hard, difficult is literally the recipe for making anything great. If you want to get built at the gym, you got to go through the shit. If you want to go on a on an epic hike with friends and family, you're going to suffer. If you have a friend that, lost a job or lost a wife or lost a kid or all the above or got a traumatic health diagnosis, that's not going to be a fun conversation. That's going to be fucking terrible.
No.
And if you've catered your life to never having those conversations, how can
Yeah.
you be there
I'll
for
do you
me?
one better. It's not the recipe for
Yeah.
being for greatness. It's not the recipe for greatness. It's the recipe for existence.
Yeah, man. I like
You
that
have
better.
to go through hardships
Yeah.
and respond to them to get through them. If you just cut out all the negativity in your life, what is your existence? Right? There has to be hardship for there to be progress.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Chris Williamson, I quote him a lot on my podcast and I follow him. He's fantastic. He has a podcast called Modern Wisdom, highly recommend it. But he has a really great, he talks about like cold plunges, working out, therapy, difficult conversations. And he basically says he's like unchosen suffering is going to happen in life. And that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like your parents are going to die, you're going to lose your job, your health's going to deteriorate, you know, whatever. There's things that you cannot control. And the only way to prepare for them is with chosen suffering. That's the only way you can deal with that situation properly. There's no other way to do
Yeah.
it. You can read as many books as you want. You can watch as many YouTube as you want. You can watch this, you're listening to this podcast. You can do whatever you want, unless you've actually gone through it. And the greatest analogy I have is, okay, you're having open heart surgery. Do you want the doctor that's 1 month into his job but spent 20 years at Harvard? Or do you want the guy that graduated from the U of A that has been doing open heart surgeries for 20 years? I want the guy who's
Yeah.
done it. That's it. I don't want
Absolutely.
I don't want the Yale fitness expert who kind of looks mediocre to teach me how to gym. I want the gym bro to teach me how to gym. He's the fucking guy that knows how to
Yeah.
do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
100%.
there's this concept going around now, and I've seen it so much, where everyone's like, cut out the negativity or anything that's not positive in your life, and meeting your frequency, and you get all these buzzwords and stuff. It's like you can't do that. That's a really, really terrible advice to take if you're wanting to be a really good friend, a really good husband,
Yeah.
a really good man, and just overall a very mature person. You have to go through life, difficult situations over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying as if like the first time you do it, you're not going to crash and burn. Like you might go through a traumatic event and I show up at your house and I might not know what to fucking say to you. And I might sit there and be like, this is fucking awkward, man. I really hope Tom is like, okay. But then the
Yeah.
next time it happens with a different friend, fuck, when I was with Tom, I wasn't really a good friend. It's like, so you develop these skills because it is a skill to not have an emotional knee-jerk reaction, which may culminate with somebody taking their own life. You have to learn how to deal with stress and frustration and
100%.
hardships and loss and or success. I mean, the same is true on the other side. If you get to the height
Absolutely.
of the mountain too quickly and you don't know how to deal with it, that's where drugs come in, that's where cheating on women comes in, that's where bad financial decisions come in. There's this balancing act, but the only way to deal with the peaks and valleys is in the middle. You kind of got to, you can't just enjoy that. You kind of got to callous yourself both
No.
mentally and physically to be able to deal with this shit.
Yeah. You have to learn how to succeed and you have to learn how to fail. Right. And the only way that you get to experience and learn those lessons is by going through the experience. You're never going to learn that reading a book. You're never going to learn that sitting at home and not having any interaction with anyone or anything, right? It just you have to put yourself out there and expose yourself to those those things, and you're either going to learn one how to overcome, how to succeed, or you're going to have to learn how to accept loss and failure through whatever venture you undertake.
Yeah, I love it, man. Because yeah, you're one of the only ones that I know that speaks out as publicly about this stuff, and this is not an easy conversation for me to have. Right? We've shared experiences at the paintball field, and we've talked about some of this stuff, and we've messaged on Messenger, and our relationship is
Yeah,
what 24 months old, and it's sporadic at best. But
yeah,
these types of conversations, I'll remember for a long time. This matters.
absolutely.
Just us talking about the idea and the concept of going through tough times. I know if I'm in a bad spot, I don't have any issues reaching out, and I would hope the same is true on the other foot. That's how it starts. We're saying that you have to kind of go through
Yeah,
bad experiences. We're not saying jump off a bridge and go through the worst one you can fucking imagine. That's not what we're getting at. It's just anything that kind of
no,
puts you in a little bit of a pickle, and you're like, it's like that's not. I kind of feel like you need to experience that. You need to take one more step forward, and then the next time take two. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Like
Yeah,
if you're pissed off at your
yeah,
boss at work, and you're just that catty person that talks to the guy next to you, like, man, fuck that guy, and la 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 la. It's like, go have a conversation. Be like, dude, why the fuck are these policy changes happening, or why am I getting a raise, or why are
yeah,
you always late to work? Just
yeah,
that alone, that builds your ability to deal with conflict, not quite head on, but better.
100%. And it's always easier to, you know, accept or understand why maybe something hasn't gone in your favor or why something isn't working out for you. When you ask the questions and you get the reasonings, right? To not know why something's not happening for you or why something is happening for you without the background information, right? All you're left with is whatever your mind can come up to for a conclusion or a solution to the situation, right? And I know from personal experience when I've, have stuff bothering me or I'm stuck wondering why something's not working out for me or why something's happening, if I don't just confront the situation or confront the person and just ask point blank what the deal is. If I'm left to my own devices and just worrying about it on my own and trying to think in my own head why something's happening, I'll inevitably always come to the worst outcome or the worst conclusion of that situation that could possibly happen every single time. And you will always manifest that poor outcome or that bad outcome because that's all you become fixated on, right? When you only focus on the outcome in a negative manner, and you convince yourself that that's the only way that this situation or this scenario can play out, guess what? It's going to play out that way because you manifest it into an existence.
Yeah, when you can't imagine a different outcome, right? You're naturally either not going to accept a different outcome, or it's just not like you said, it's going to naturally gravitate to it. What are some ideas or something that you might have that people can do on an individual personal level to kind of combat maybe any demons or lack of assertiveness to maybe have a difficult conversation? If somebody's hearing this for the first time, that's kind of thought provoking. They're like, man, I've really been in a rough spot since COVID, or, maybe before then or recently, whatever it may be, the Oilers losing the Stanley Cup finals, if that's really weighing on your mind, whatever, what are some ideas that maybe have either helped you or that you've maybe either seen help other people or you're working on yourself that people can do on a personal level to kind of build this? We talk about being assertive. It's not easy. It's very difficult. Do you think people just need to jump in,
Yeah.
or is there maybe some mindsets or some tactics or some skills that they can build?
I mean, I know for myself personally, I was never the type of person to enlist help from a professional services or utilize like, doctors or physicians to assist or, get you in touch with people like, the psychologists or the social workers or the therapists to talk about whatever the issues are that was bothering me. And it was probably about 7, maybe 8 years ago. I was having some real issues in my work life, and I went off work for a while, and I ended up talking with a therapist for probably 4 or 5 months. I didn't know what else to do at that point. I was in such a bad place in my mental frame, frame of mind, and in my workplace, like I didn't know what else to do. Like, I mean, I know my wife was, you know, as helpful as she could be and as receptive as I was to what she was telling me, you know, giving me ideas of things of how to deal with situations and whatnot. I really wasn't as receptive as I should have been, but I thought maybe talking to somebody I didn't know, you know, for lack of a better term, talking to a professional about it, you know, maybe that was the step that I needed to take to try and reframe or rework how I would think about certain situations and how I would approach them and how I would deal with them. And that was, I mean, yeah, they said a lot of things that my wife said to me, and I was more into from a stranger than I was my own wife, right? But that helped me a lot with being able to, you know, kind of change my outlook on things, how I dealt with it, and not, you know, not bury things down and kind of ignore them and, you know, the remove the negativity from your life. And yeah, just deal with it. If I had an issue with something, I started to find it was better for me to just patient right then and there and have a discussion, whether it was with a person, a coworker, or just anyone about the situation that I was in, and just, you know, explain how I was feeling about it and why I was feeling that way, and you know, listening to feedback, talking about situations not for my point in the conversation to talk, but talking about things to hear what others had to say and whether I agreed with it or not, but to give me an aspect, a different aspect of how I was thinking about a situation, right? Because everyone has a different outlook on things sometimes, right? And sometimes hearing, you know, a different aspect of a situation or whatever you're dealing with, you know, can help you think in a different way about it, right?
That's awesome, man. Appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, I've gone to therapy as well. Like you, I was super abrasive to it. I use the term shrink. I would use the term weak, vulnerable, stupid. All they do is talk. So why am I paying for this service? Yeah, I had some issues with my daughter, almost destroyed my marriage. And I'll summarize what you probably were trying to say is when you talk to somebody who has no skin in the game, and when they repeat what your loved ones were saying, you know that they're not telling you what you want to hear. They're telling you what you need to hear.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
So when it's echoed by somebody who has no idea what's going on in your life except for the 30-minute, 45-minute conversation I just had, and they draw to almost the exact same conclusions, then you know, okay, my wife wasn't just saying that to talk me off a ledge. She's giving me proper feedback. She's giving me proper advice. She's
Yeah.
giving me proper support. And that's, I think, where that becomes valuable is if you're true and you open up, you know, you put it all on the line, everything that's going on. That's the key component there, right? You have to be honest. You have to put it on the
Yeah.
table the way you would with loved ones if you're scared that they have a bias towards you. That's where it comes full circle and you're like, okay. And then you can transition from the therapist because at that point you really trust that whoever was giving you advice in the past is kind of technically your therapist. If you're telling them the same information, they're coming to the same outcome. It's just really nice to have that reassurance that that third party, no involvement, no history, that's what really makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're never going to grow and progress if you're perpetually stuck in an echo chamber, right? When all you hear is what you want to hear, you will completely become stagnant in anything that you're involved in, right? You need to have you need to have different viewpoints. And no matter what you're doing, there has to be protagonist and antagonist, right? For there to be any chance of growth or change. I think you have to, if you just surround yourself with the people who are going to tell you what you want to hear, then yeah, you will continue to be the same person from that point forward. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, but you won't ever change from that. You won't achieve more. You'll probably achieve less, right? If you want to keep forward progress in your life, you have to be able to incorporate people that will challenge you. challenge you in your beliefs, challenge you in your way of thinking. Not, not from a destructive point, but just, keep you on your toes. Provide you different input, different aspects, different outlooks on anything, right? That's how you're going to learn. That's how you're going to grow. So
Yeah, I think that goes back to what I was saying is if you only do things that you want to do and
yeah,
only hear what you want to hear, that's it's not going to get you anywhere, right? Like, but that's the messaging nowadays, it seems. People are so like so for me, and I love that, and I agree with you 100%. Reach out therapy. I believe Alberta has a free 3-digit number that you can call to get somebody on the phone. I know a lot of company benefits cover it. There's a lot of
yeah,
online. There's an app, BetterHelp, sponsoring a lot of podcasts and a lot of small up and coming influencers. There's not a lack of support out there. So even a phone one, I've done a phone one once in person. I'll always advocate for in person. I'm a
yeah,
traditionalist at heart. I think, seeing people's mannerisms, body mechanics, their facial expression, you can tell, right? Right
yeah.
away. So I would advocate for in person, but I mean, again, if you're a digital person and that's what your methodology, go for it. For me, ultra accountability has helped kill my ego. And a tool that I used really quickly is if you have an ego complex, and when I say ego complex, basically if you're mad at somebody for not doing something. And I'll use the example of, let's say you're mad at a friend that hasn't reached out to you in 2 years or 3 years, or maybe they only reach out to you on your birthday on Facebook and they wish you happy birthday. And it's that pre-programmed one that it's just one click and zero effort kind of thing. You need to write down what they're not doing. If you want them to reach out, if you want them to call, if you want them to email, if you want them to knock on your door, and then you need to circle the ones that you haven't done. And whichever
Hmm.
ones you haven't done, do them.
Yeah. What's that saying? Whenever you point at something, there's four fingers pointing back at you.
Yeah.
Whenever and you're typically always going to see the traits in others that you don't like that you usually exhibit yourself, right? You're going to see those ones right off the hop.
Yeah, because I mean, we're in a digital world now. So the ability to have even a conversation like this, you don't have any excuses. They did like that's not real. But again, for it to be meaningful and impactful, you could, and maybe you are the person. Maybe you're the person that's reached out 100 times, and all you get is one word answers, or maybe all you get is, yeah, I'm busy, and it could be something that's genuine, a new kid. I know I have a new baby coming in March for probably the first 6 months. People aren't going to see me very
Yes,
much.
congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate that, buddy. And that's just a fact because when you have kids, sleep is a currency and you don't have much of it. You kind of live in poverty a little bit when it
Yeah.
comes to sleep. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's just the nature of it. And maybe you are that person. Maybe you're like, I know I've been that person. I've reached out, reached out, reached out, reached out, reached out, and eventually you lose gas, you lose motivation, right? I know for me, I
Yeah.
just try different methods, right? And eventually I will get disincentivized and it'd be of no fault to me if somebody's just not genuinely interested. Maybe it's an ideological issue. Maybe it's a, personal issue. Maybe you've moved on. Maybe we've grown apart, or maybe I did something and you're fucking pissed. I don't know, whatever. But it's certainly not going to be for lack of trying. And I'm not going to allow my ego to be the reason why something doesn't work out or something's meaningful. Because I will tell you this, I think as easy as it is to communicate these days, and as easy it is to, for connection, digital world, how, reach out, all that stuff. I think because of that, and this is kind of going down to the foundation of why I think we have a men's mental health issue and really a connection issue in society. It's fucking hard to make friends nowadays.
It is.
Like meaningful, like friends. Like I don't use that term lightly. Like when I hear of a friend and I put you in that column, you kind of have certain responsibilities in my eyes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And one of my favorite sayings of all time, and I joke about it at work because right now there's a bug going around work and tons of people are sick and stuff, but and I say it in paintball, I think it's true for a sports metaphor. The best ability is availability.
Yeah,
Period. If you're not available to
100%.
me, it doesn't matter your income, it doesn't matter how fit you are, it doesn't matter your business prowess, it doesn't matter your our history. If you're not available, you're not that connection isn't as strong. That bond is gonna slowly start to kind of fall apart, right?
Well,
You
yeah,
need
there
to be
won't
a
be one. Any relationship, it's reciprocal, right? There
Mhm.
has to be investment and engagement from both sides for the relationship to work, whether that be a friendship, a relationship, husband, wife, whatever, siblings. There has to be engagement from both sides for there to be any type of relationship there whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. Well, we're pushing 2 hours here, so I think I appreciate you making yourself available. Time flies when you're talking good stuff.
Well, thank you
And
very much for having me on. I've enjoyed this.
yeah, no, it's been great, dude. It's great to catch up, period. I just want to first say that. Thank you. These winters here in Alberta are long and shitty, and we're blessed to
Yeah.
have an indoor paintball facility to kind of connect with. But yeah, it's great to just connect, man. I appreciate you making the time, making the effort, and opening up, man. That's awesome.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. And yeah, really enjoyed this. Hopefully everyone who listens can take something away from it. And to those that do, when I say I'm there for you, I'm available. I'm always here to whatever, be an ear if somebody just needs to vent, or if maybe whatever you're going through, I've got some experience in, we can chat about it. But just, yeah, I'm my phone is always on, and you're going through something, just know that you don't have to go through it by yourself. I don't even have to know you. Just reach out. Just don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
I love that, dude. That's awesome. Yeah. And yeah, shout out to the paintball community. Shout out to everybody who's listening to this. And yeah, same here. If anybody ever needs to reach out, what are some socials that you got here? Plug them away. What you got? I know it's Crusaders PB at Instagram. On Instagram, is that it?
Yeah, here. I don't even know what the hell they are off the top of my head. I'm so bad at the social media
We're
thing.
such dinosaurs. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, Crusaders PB on Instagram, and then yeah, it's Crusaders Paintball on the Facebook. That's
I love it. I love
about
it.
all I got going on.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, dude. Well, shout out to
Yeah,
the fam. Shout out to the son. Hopefully, you see him out there at the field this summer. And yeah, once
we're
again,
gonna try. We're gonna try. I heard a rumbling that there might be a quote unquote kids club starting up at Bragg Creek again this year. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And it's not just for kids, it's for just people new to paintball and speedball and want to try it out. There's gonna be, from what I heard, there's gonna be something set up this year to kind of get that going again and start driving up interest and getting some new faces into the sport. So I'm sure once that becomes official, then there'll be lots of notification on the socials. So keep an eye out for
love
that,
it.
and come on out. We'd love to see some new people get out there and get to learn and experience what we love doing, right? So,
Love it. Cool, dude. Well, we're gonna close it off there, man. Appreciate your time. You're
all
an
right, sir.
absolute stud. Thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to talking to you again soon, man.
You bet. We'll see you around. Thanks, Alfred.
Take care. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Unmodern Podcast. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, like and follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Unmodern Podcast. Do you have suggestions for future guests, or if you're interested in being a guest yourself, please visit unmodernpodcast.com. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next episode.